Hi birdies! This is Crow, and today I'm going to be doing a fanfiction review of Wicked Game by Quackers. It's a Buzzfeed Unsolved fanfiction written about the couple, you want to call it a couple, the pairing of Shane Madej and Ryan Bergara, also called Cheyenne. I think that's how you pronounce it, at least. I've always called it Cheyenne. And of course, if that's something that is not something you're comfortable with, real person pairings, definitely just don't watch this video and don't read the fanfiction if that's something that bothers you. Do what you will. Also, I have a Babbit on my lap. You all can't see the Babbit. This is the Babbit. The Babbit has decided to take over my lap. So if you hear weird noises or you see my hand moving below the camera, it's because there's a Babbit here. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. So as I said, the title of this fanfiction is Wicked Game. So I got a hold of the author, whose name is Quackers, on AO3. And then they also have a Tumblr under @methsation. If you know how to use Tumblr, please tell me because I am still learning. Anyways, but I did get a hold of Quackers on Tumblr and was able to ask them a couple of different things. One of the things that they mentioned was that Babbit just fell over, and I think she's going to fall off my lap. Are you okay, Babbit? She's a very persnickety Babbit. And now she's moving again. And now she is falling. Babbit! Okay. The Babbit is now taken care of, maybe. The Babbit is not very happy with me not giving her enough attention. But the title of the story came from the song by Chris Isaac. Quackers mentioned a different name as well, a cover that they prefer, and I'll put that name up here somewhere for you because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Anyways, the platform that this story is posted on is AO3. Of course, if you want to look at Quackers' other works, you can always go to their profile on AO3. They also keep up with a full master list of their fan fictions on Tumblr, so you can always go there as well, and they always have updates and what they're working on, so definitely check out their other stuff. I'm going to be doing other reviews on some of their other stories. Heartbeat is my favorite. I'm also going to be doing one on Black Sun. They're all amazing. I'm just going to go ahead and read the summary for this story. Just says, Detective Ryan Bergara at the LAPD has been tasked with finding the nation's newest serial killer, a murderer who leaves no trace and has no pattern. A new partner with fresh eyes might be just what he needs to find the suspect, if only Detective Madej wasn't so distracting. So that kind of explains what the story is about. It is a serial killer detective AU. It's very intriguing. It's a little bit like something you would watch on TV, only it is much more... It's also very driven by the relationship. The relationship and the plot are very, very intertwined. There's no separating them, which I really, really like. It doesn't feel like the romance is pushed into it at all. It's very synchronized. Not synchronized. It's just very well done. And I'm trying to think of anything that I can really say about the plot without giving too much away. I'm going to add like a spoiler tag before I get into some of the deeper details, so anybody who doesn't want any spoilers whatsoever knows when to stop. This story is rated E for explicit, mostly from what I can tell from the sexy times in it. And there are warnings for this fanfiction. The main one, for those of you who know a lot of the constructs of how AO3 is set up, the major warning on there is graphic depictions of violence. There are also other minor warning tags or minor warnings in the tags that you can always look at, and that's always on the beginning section of the story, so you can always look at that. The word count is at 101,000 words, so it's kind of lengthy. It's 17 chapters long, and of course, as I said, it is in the fandom of Buzzfeed Unsolved. It ships Ryan and Shane from Buzzfeed Unsolved, and also Watcher, if you're also on that aspect of following them on social media and YouTube. There aren't any sequels or additional works. Some of Quacker's stories have some extras, so but Wicked Game does not have one of those. It's a very it has a very blunt ending, I guess. You know where the ending is, and it doesn't need anything after that. I'll put it there. It's extremely well written. So well written. And I'll get into this more as after the spoilers warning, but it is so well written. It's very well thought out. You're very much... The first time that I read this story, I read it in maybe 2 days. I was so engrossed in it. It's just phenomenal the way it was written. The grammar in it is exceptional. There's a couple of typos here and there, but it's nothing that will take away from the story. There are a couple of OCs in this story, one of them being a very major character. The OCs are very well written, and I'll get more into that a little bit later as well. I know that some people don't like to read OCs in stories, but these OCs do have a place in the story, and it's just perfect the way it is written. I honestly didn't know that the characters were OCs. I actually had to go and look it up to make sure, are these Buzzfeed employees that I wasn't aware of, that I haven't watched in videos? It was an OC, and I had no idea. It just they fit so perfectly into the story. Don't not read this story because of the OCs, because it's still just perfect. As far as the being in character and out of character or all of that, there's never a moment where I thought, I don't think Ryan would do this, or this is not something that Shane would ever say. Of course, with an AU, any type of AU, you do have to put those characters into that setting. It's not like it's on the set of Buzzfeed Unsolved. It's very much a completely different aspect. Now, it is interesting that it's a detective AU, because that does kind of go into Buzzfeed Unsolved. I thought that was an interesting route to go with it. There are a lot of things in this story that completely match with the canon of Buzzfeed Unsolved, if that makes sense. So just like in Buzzfeed Unsolved, Ryan is very intelligent. He gets his facts together and makes observations from those facts. In the story, a lot of times it'll be mentioned that he has a feeling. He has a feeling. And that just fits the idea of Ryan Bergara in my mind. I think it fits very well. Okay, from this point on, I am putting a spoiler warning. I'm going to try as hard as I can not to do it. Babbitt, what are you doing? I'm going to try really hard not to give any big plot points away or anything like that. I just kind of want to go a little bit deeper into the parts that I really liked about the story and what I didn't. Spoiler on that, there was very little that I disliked about this story. So, just so you all know, spoilers here, very minor. If you want to know absolutely nothing about this story before you go read it, I would sign off here and go read it. My favorite parts. I've already said the plot is absolutely wonderful. The way that the relationship and the plot is so intertwined, it really reels you in, because this story, except for maybe, I think, 2 chapters, it's all from Ryan's perspective. You're very much with Ryan when you go into this, and you're seeing everything from his perspective, and you're questioning when he's questioning. So he's looking at this like, this is sketchy. Should I trust this? No, I shouldn't. Yes, maybe I will. And you're seeing the facts as he's seeing them in... Let me also say that I read this for the 3rd time. So I always reread the stories before I review them. And I highly recommend, if you read this story, read it again after you finish it, because there are so many little details that add up in the end that you just don't think about. Especially in the first, say maybe 5 or 6 chapters, little details that you would never notice that you just write off to begin with very, very important. And so it was definitely very eye-opening to go back and see how well thought out this plot was, and just the littlest details that you wouldn't think anything of, and how much it means to the rest of the story. And when I reread this time, the third time, I knew what was going to happen, but I was still engrossed in it. I was still with Ryan the whole time. No matter how many times I read this story, I think I'm still going to be with Ryan through it. Even though I know what happens, I'm still going to be questioning with him the whole way through. It's one of those stories where you get sad as the number of chapters to go gets smaller. There are so few stories now, because I've read so many. I've read so many good ones. I've read some okay ones. There are so few fan fictions that I have read that, especially recently, I've gotten to the point where a lot of the fan fictions I read, I'm interested in them, but I'm like, okay, just 3 more chapters and this will be over. This was not one of those stories. Even rereading it this time, knowing I needed to get it done so I could do the review on it, I still didn't want it to be over. I was on chapter 13 of 17, I was like, oh no, there's only 4 chapters left. I know what's going to happen, but I don't want it to end. Very much one of those stories, and it's always nice to have one of those. It's the same thing that I get with Warriors books, and Warriors is pretty much the only book series that I get like this, is I realize that I've got this much read and this much left to read, and I'm just, I don't want it to end. I want to know. And this is one of those stories that really does that for me. I really enjoyed Ryan's character. It's, of course, like I already said, he's very in character. It's very smooth. There's no hiccups in his character where I would think that this isn't something he would do in real life. If it wasn't an AU. Ryan's struggle with being in the closet. He is gay. I believe he's gay. He's either gay or bi. I want to say he's gay, though. Pretty sure he's gay. I think so. He struggles with that being in... Babbitt is falling off my lap again. Her head is just dangling. Guess she's comfortable. I don't know how, but she is comfortable, so I will leave the Babbitt to do Babbitty things, which apparently is sleeping and nearly falling off my lap again. Ryan being in the LAPD, and he's been in the closet so long that it has become ingrained in him. And you see how he's struggling with his own sexuality, even though that he has accepted it. He's in the closet and he is scared. He's so scared of being out. Shane, on the other hand, is going through this, I won't call it a crisis. He's learning that he's not fully straight. He's not having this meltdown over it, though. Of course, everything Ryan and Shane, they're polar opposites, skeptic and believer, things like that. This is another one of those instances where Shane is just kind of going with it. He's fine with it. Ryan, even though he knows he's gay, he's not questioning it. He's in the closet. He's scared. And there's so many points where that causes friction between them, with Ryan struggling with this idea of, man, I really like Shane, but we work together. The whole unit is going to know that I'm gay. Can I deal with that? And it's so much more in-depth than what a lot of fanfictions go into. Even fanfictions that do go into the struggles of being in the closet or figuring out that you're gay, things like that. Of course, you have a lot of those when you read the BL, yaoi, gay literature, genre, whatever you want to call it. You have a lot of those stories, and this is one of the ones that really does it justice. It feels very realistic to me seeing this, and I love how it doesn't falter. Some stories will have these big plot points, like a character being in the closet, and it kind of, he goes through it, and then it's over with, and it doesn't come back up. It's a continuous thing with this story. From the moment that you have Ryan first talking about him being in the closet to an argument that they have later on as a couple. I love that it's so consistent in that way. The last thing that I want to talk about as far as like a favorite part is a good ending isn't always a happy ending. This is probably one of my biggest spoilers here. Don't go into this thinking that it's going to be a fairy tale. It is a dark story. It's a very dark story. And that's kind of what I love about it, because it gives you that. A lot of times I talk about books and fan fictions giving me a feeling, like a feeling of a setting. This type of story makes me truly feel like I'm in the middle of a really interesting Criminal Minds episode, just huddled up in a dark room, which I pretty much do that anyways. I'm pretty much reading a Criminal Minds story with a relationship plot mixed in, huddled up in a dark room and not seeing the light of day for a couple hours. That's pretty much what it is. So I guess it's less of a feeling and more of an actuality. But this is a story that from the beginning I kind of knew it wasn't going to be a happy ending, and I think that's okay. Not every story is meant to have a happy ending. And I will say that Quackers is absolutely wonderful at delivering these good endings regardless of whether they are happy or sad. It's one of those stories that when I finished it, I was so happy with how it ended, but I was so upset with the way it's so hard to explain. And Quackers has such a way with doing that. Specifically, I remember the ending of Heartbeat and the last line of Heartbeat. And if you have read it, you will know what I'm talking about. It's wonderful, and I love it. This is one of those endings that stuck with me, even though when I went through like that, a gap where I didn't really read Buzzfeed Unsolved Fanfiction for several months because I just kind of floated out of the fandom. This was a story that I still remembered. And I still remembered the ending, even though I didn't necessarily remember the beginning and middle. The ending is always what I remembered. And I always remembered it in such a wonderful way. So this is definitely one of the best examples of a good ending does not have to be a happy ending. And this has a perfect ending. It goes exactly where I feel like it's most realistic that it went. So that's all of my favorite parts. I could go on and on, but I tried to limit it to these things. My least favorite part, and this isn't really a least favorite, this could also be considered a plus. One of the OCs that is in this story, the major OC in this story, is named Jessica. Very much an amazingly well-written character. I hated her. Even from the beginning, I got a weird feeling. But regardless of that, very much a spectacularly written character. It's kind of like Harry Potter. You know how you hate Umbridge? It's more of the I hate Voldemort type thing. Like an evil thing, like it's such a well done character. It's not a flat character like Umbridge is. It's a very well thought out Tom Riddle type of character. And I just love to hate her. I really hate Jessica, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, super well written. There's not many fan fictions that I have read that I have really remembered an OC in. This is one of them where I remember Jess. I remember her, regardless of for what reasons. But yes, that is probably, Jess is my least favorite part, but is also so well done that even though I absolutely hate her, I can't take it against Quackers. I don't think I could say anything negative about Quackers at this point. I did actually get to ask Quackers about Jess's character. Spoilers, again, I can't really go into exactly what they said about Jess, just that Jess is a similar yet almost a foil character for Shane, and you can kind of understand that once you read. because you've got the love interest and the best friend of Ryan. And so they're very similar, but they have very key differences. And it's, again, it's so well done. All in all, fun things all in all. I highly recommend this fan fiction. Please, please read it. Kudos and comments, and definitely subscribe to Quackers on AO3 and also on Tumblr if you're on Tumblr. Absolutely phenomenal writer and an absolutely phenomenal story. I probably will reread this fanfiction again many, many times. And also, Soft Cryptids. Know anything about Soft Cryptids other than that they have a Tumblr and they do interact with Quackers quite a bit and has made fan arts of Quackers fanfiction, specifically the cover image for Wicked Game that I showed at the beginning of this video. That was done by Soft Cryptids. So also follow them if you can. And I don't know very much about them, but definitely wonderful artwork. Anyways, I think that's it for this week. Definitely hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments below what you think. Have you read this fan fiction? Are you going to read this fan fiction? And definitely let me know if you have read it, what are your favorite parts of it? I always like somebody to talk to about fan fiction, always. You all have a great week, and I will see you next week. And Babbitt says goodbye as well, even though you can't see her. Bye, guys.